Hi guys, it's Dakota. Hope everybody's doing well. Sorry I didn't have a video last week. My store opened, we were able to open up week before last, and it has been incredibly busy ever since. And I really needed last week to just sort of regroup my head. And I'm glad we did because last week was just as busy, and I'm really grateful. And I want to thank everybody so much who all the support and the love and has it's tremendous. It's just really it's been so awesome, and I'm just truly grateful. I don't even know what kind of words to say. Thank you. That's what I'll say. Thank you. So today's top. Look at my hair, right? So with if you get a buzz cut, growing it out is like horrendous. It's getting there though. Like I don't. Okay. Anyway, today what I wanted to talk about is something that I find kind of really interesting, and I've thought so for quite a long time now. Originally I'm from the West Coast. I'm from California, and I now live on Eastern North Carolina. And I want to talk about the directions. I want to talk about north, south, east, and west, and I want to talk about the elements that correspond with those. The problem is, as I started to look into it, over the years, now this is over the years, this isn't just for this video, this is over the years, which is why I wanted to talk about this video. When I was in California, we used compass. We used the compass. We had a compass, and we used the compass to set up north, south, east, and west. And because back then, all I had was like three books: Scott Cunningham's Wicca, Raymond Buckland's Blue Book, and Silver Raven Wolf's Solitary Witch. I think those were the three main books that I had. And that's what they said to do. So I thought that was law. And so that's what I did because I didn't have mentors back then, which wasn't really a thing back then. Um, and so that's what they said to do. And so that's what I did. I still practice that today. I practice that. I won't go through everything, but east is the element of air. I still practice that today. And I still actually will use my compass to find the directions of north, south, east, and west. And those are the directions that I call in that specific setup. And I use the elements that correspond with those directions that I've always used. So east is air, and south is fire, west is water, and north is earth. That's what I use. All right. Well, when I moved out here to North Carolina, it was really kind of funny. So I was invited to a ritual, and somebody I know is probably watching this video, and maybe they'll remember. It was really kind of embarrassing, but I will tell you this. This was before, and I think that was sort of a trigger. This was before I really started studying the elements. I only knew north, south, east, and west, California style. So our ritual was on the beach at the Atlantic Ocean. And they asked me, and so our ocean, I don't even remember how it's laid out, but however it was laid out, whatever direction it was that I was calling, which might have been east, very well could have been, I was facing the water, and I could not call because it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, wait, how am I facing the water, the ocean, and calling east? East is air, it's not water. And the waves are crashing on the shore, and it was messing with my head. And so I think that was the beginning. It was really embarrassing. And so I think that was the beginning of my journey on studying and learning the elements. Because here's the thing, and I realized that day that there's more to the elements than just, invoking some beautiful poetry, which is fine. I am not taken away from that. If you are a poet, if you have the gift of writing, I envy you. I don't. And so my invocations come from probably the same place that yours comes from, but it's not poetic. But it comes from my soul. It comes from within, deep within. But it only came from there once I started studying the elements. I had to have the academics. I had to have the structure. I needed to know the whys. Like, well, yeah, the sun here on the East Coast, the sun comes up on the east, so it's coming up on the water, and I'm calling the element of air. That's weird. Why would I do that? But calling water for the east does not resonate with me at all. At all. Not because I was told this is how it is. Because I think even at that point, I was willing to change. I was willing to go, oh, okay, I get it. I do get it. Don't get me wrong. I do get it. I do get it. Some people have that hard time going, I'm looking at the direction of east and it's a body of water. How do I call air when I'm looking at water? I totally get that. I do. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it doesn't resonate with me. And not because that's what I was told, because there's no law. There truly is no law. There just isn't a law. And there are some covens. There are some traditions, I'm sure. Some groups, probably. Different countries, whether you're Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere. I'm sure that there's all numbers, all different kinds of ways, pardon me, that people call the elements. So if you're in a tradition, if you're going to join a coven, you want to join this coven, and the coven says to you, we call water for the direction of east because we live on the East Coast. And you say to yourself, I don't even get that. That just does not resonate with me whatsoever. Then that's probably not going to be the best coven for you, because as much as you want to be a part of the coven, you'll just be going through the motions. And that isn't how we do it. That isn't, I don't think that they would appreciate that either if they knew that you felt that way. So you really do have to understand it, and you do have to feel it. So, so it's very hard not that I could be standing in the west, the direction of west, which for me is the element of water. And I could be standing in west and call any of the elements, because like standing in west, pardon me, I could be standing in west and I could call south element of fire. The reason why is because I studied the elements I built a relationship with the elements. I know fire personally, if you want to call it that. But I just feel like I have a relationship with each of the elements internally, energetically, not just on this physical realm, but energetically. You could blindfold me, spin me in a circle, and say, you are facing north, call the element, call west, or the element of west, call west and the element of west. And I could call whatever invocation I had, I call water, blah, 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 and I could do my invocation. Because it doesn't come from, for me, it doesn't come from this physical realm, the circle that I'm standing in. It comes from here. It comes from an energetic place within me. Excuse me. Tickle in my throat. So it comes from this energetic place within me. And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, is that's what I really want people to understand about the directions. It's one thing if you belong to a tradition or you belong to a coven or a group and you have initiated into that, knowing that for them, it's a different element for the direction. So let's use east. East for me is air, but if it was water for the tradition, and I worked with that, and I said, okay, yeah, I feel it. I get that. Then that's one thing. When you're in that group, you're working with those elements as a group. So the power, the egregore, the energy is phenomenal. When you leave, and let's say next week you decide you want to do a ritual and you want to call the element of air for east, then you have that prerogative to do so. But in the group, not so much. But you have agreed to do that when you join the group. But not just agreed to it, you have to believe it. Or else it's a false. It's a falsity that's a lie. You know what I mean? Like you can't just join a coven and or a group and say, oh well, I'm just going to do it because I want to be part of the group. You can't. That doesn't work. So you really want to build a relationship with the elements. And that way you know what to expect. They know the elements know what to expect. And that way you should be able to, at any given time, whichever direction you are standing, call the direction and the element that you want. So I know a lot of people get worked up about, oh, my room, I'm setting up my temple, I'm setting up my altar, or my altar, or I'm setting up my magic room, my ritual room, whatever. And I like to call east first, but so I want my altar facing east, but my door is that smack dab east. I can't set my altar up in the east. Oh, what am I going to do? Well, you can set it up to the side of east. I mean, right? It doesn't have to be exact. If it can be exact, fantastic. But you're not connecting with east on the physical realm. You should be connecting with east on the energetic realm from within you. So if you want it east, then you're going to set it up as close to east as you can. And then you can go ahead and call east. You would have to figure out if the element, if you're using the element of water for east, then I guess the same thing would follow through. You would want to set your starting point at east, but you would be calling water. But it doesn't have to be right on the compass mark. It really doesn't, because you're just not calling from the physical realm. And you have to remember that. And I know it's really hard. It's really hard. It was hard for me. This is still hard for me when I'm calling. I'm used to putting my arm up, my hand up to call, and try calling with your arms down at your side, blindfolded. Try doing that, not even knowing what direction you're standing in because somebody spins you around. Try that sometime. As lessons, try that. Because here's the thing, you should be able to, at any given time, doesn't matter what direction you're standing in, you should be able to feel the element that you are calling and call that element and have it come. So those are little exercises that you should try. They're hard. They don't sound as hard as they are, but at least they were hard for me. It was really hard for me. And the ritual that I did at the Atlantic beach when I'm standing in water trying to call the element of air, I was just going, wait a minute, am I facing west? This doesn't make sense. It was really confusing because the moon was coming up, and I'm thinking, wait, you should be going down into the water, not coming up from the water. And it was very confusing for me. And that was that starting point for me when I said, there's more to this than just blah, 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 calling out an element. Again, kudos to those of you who can be poetic and can have like all the beautiful words. I love it. I cannot do that. I'm not poetic, and it just comes from within. What do I feel about that element? What do I know about that element? What are we doing? Are we doing this? Am I doing a Sabbath? Because then I'm going to try to use the correspondences of that Sabbath with that element. Or if I'm doing, if I'm doing an Esbat, then I'm still, I'm going to try to, if it's a full moon, I'm going to try to incorporate, if I'm doing circle, I'm going to try to incorporate the element of air and the full moon energy. What does air bring to the full moon energy? What does the full moon bring to the element of air? How do they work together? And call that way. And I call from what I feel, what I know, what I've learned, what I've worked with. And that's just kind of how I feel about that. So remember that, again, there's no law about how you do it. No one should tell you that while you're on the East Coast, you have to call water for the east. That is not true. If you're near a body of water, you have to call east. If you're near a body of water, you'd have to call west. No. Or even that. I could not stand on the East Coast with my feet in the water, watching the sun rise and call west. Because the West Coast, the sun sets in the west. So Like, it's weird. It's a weird thing. So you really have to work with it. You have to work with it, and you have to know your elements. And the only way to know your elements is to work with your elements on an individual basis. I worked with air for a very long time, fire for a very long time. Every single element I have worked with to the point that I know the element, I know how it works, I know its positives and I know its negatives. I know its pros and its cons. And I know that any of the elements can get out of control unless you know how to control them. And we control them by what we know about them. And so yeah, so I just thought that was some cool food for thought. And but don't let anybody tell you that this is the way it is, because that's not the way it is. The way it is the way it is for you. If you have initiated with a tradition and you are a traditional witch, then in your tradition, and if you only practice even outside of your coven, of your group, you only practice traditional protocol, then by all means, you use what your tradition calls for. But if you're in a traditional coven, or if you're just in a tradition, but outside of that, but you like to work a little bit outside of that tradition, then feel free to put your feet in the Atlantic Ocean, which is on the East Coast, where the sun and the moon rise, and call west. It's okay if you can do it. I can't. It doesn't resonate with me. So I suppose I could if I worked with it, but it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel right for me. So anyway, there's some food for thought. Hope you enjoyed it, and I had fun making it. I like thinking those things out, and talk to you next time. Bye, guys. Take care.